Welcome to another edition of the Dynasty Underdog Personal Ranking Symposium.
That was a lot of words. A lot of words.
First two episodes, we got into why we rank and why we tier. Today, we're going to get into positional evaluations. And I think we're just going to start with the most important position in football and in Superflex, Dynasty Fantasy Football, the best format of Dynasty Fantasy Football, the QB position, right? I think what we wanted to do is discuss each position and the attributes that we prioritize. Of course, at a more high level, we're not getting into player evaluations here or anything like that, but more at a high level, what we're looking for when we're ranking in terms of each position, right? We'll hop into the rankings and we'll take a look at some examples here. But first, I want to list out some of the things that I think we prioritize when ranking quarterbacks. I think the most important attributes start with stability, rushing upside, elite traits, especially when it comes to rookie drafts, scheme and coaching. And of course, I think this goes for probably every position, but you're looking for that weekly upside, right? Let's jump into the rankings real quick and show you a little bit about what I'm talking about here. So here we're going to pull up the rankings and we're going to look at the quarterback position and try to highlight some of the attributes and how they're relating to our rankings. Talking about stability, just looking right at the top, you're looking at Patrick Mahomes at number 1, which makes a lot of sense. Josh Allen at number 2, right? Lamar Jackson at number 3. I think that all makes sense, but you're starting to see some of that rushing upside creep in when you're looking at QB 3, 4, 5. You're still looking at stability and that youth there, of course, but you get into the Anthony Richardson area, QB 6, where a little bit unproven, but we're really projecting and we're, I think, prioritizing that rushing upside, right? Looking at quarterback 7, Joe Burrow, and quarterback 8, Justin Herbert. There's that stability again coming into play, right? And then Kyler Murray, we're reaching back to that rushing upside, which is why I think he's making it into that top 12, right? Because there's definitely some concerns for sure with Kyler Murray over his career. So just kind of walking through the top 10 here, you can kind of see how we're prioritizing some of these different attributes that I listed out. Just to highlight here, the scheme and coaching factor, I think, comes into play when you look at guys like Lamar and CJ Stroud, right? You know, they're set up to succeed. They're set up to get the best out of their skill sets at this point, right? Lamar Jackson has a coach who is going to accentuate the pass, who is going to try to improve him as a passer, right? CJ Stroud is just set up in an offense that is, suited for him. He has a coach who believes in him. And I think, you see that coaching and scheme factor come into play with those guys. Most recently, we moved up Lamar Jackson a little bit in our rankings. I think he just surpassed Jalen Hurts, right? Similar quarterbacks, a little bit older quarterback in Lamar Jackson, 2 years, but I don't think we're really concerned about that. I think we're more concerned with the stability, the fact that he has a coach who believes in him as a more well-rounded QB, and he has that rushing upside. So that kind of lifts him up a little bit. And I think that is a good example of kind of, what we're looking for in a quarterback and why we would maybe make a move, even in a tight window with a guy like Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, and why we have a guy like Anthony Richardson so high up in our rankings, even though he's still unproven. So Jake, just kind of talking about some of these attributes, is there anything that you think maybe I missed that you would highlight? Anything you agree with or disagree with as I kind of go through our rankings here?
I think the biggest idea that I want to take away from this is really about understanding your own evaluation of what draws points to a player. I guess at the end of the day, like, we know what statistically will create a larger gap between quarterback A versus quarterback B. That is why, Billy is discussing rushing upside as being so prevalent and prominent, especially at the top half of our listings. Bottom half, really the only individual that you can really see is Justin Fields, who kind of falls into that gap of being a rushing upside quarterback. But talking about stability, you have the other concern, where is he going to be playing next year? That makes you relatively uncomfortable with understanding what the future actually has in store for him. Will Levis is probably another quarterback who kind of falls into that kind of gap of having some mild rushing upside, but also, what's the stability there? Lower draft capital than normal, having a brand new head coach next year, not the same head coach that drafted him, puts you in a very weird situation and makes it more challenging for us to have a good understanding of where those quarterbacks lie. And that's why they take a hit within the rebuilder rankings.
And I think, we can also look to the tiers a little bit here and make sense of things as well. where, you're looking at the stability upside, and then you're looking at some unproven talent that also exhibit some of those traits, right? They exhibit some of what we're talking about, but they fall into tier 2 with, like, I'm thinking of a Stroud or Richardson, Burrow or Herbert. Like, they all have some qualities that, we want for sure, that could elevate them into that top tier, but that's why they're in that second tier right now. And, just highlighting that to show the importance of tiers and how they add a little bit more context to things when we're evaluating, each attribute and these positions and kind of where we're placing them. All right, Jake, you got anything else? I know that we do want to make these concise, and we want to make these brief and make sure that we're kind of getting to the point on the positional evaluations.
Get to the point.
Any final thoughts on the quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I want to just kind of hone in on as we leave this is, with these individual quarterbacks that we're talking about from one tier to another, that's honestly where I see the biggest gaps. So, I almost find the quarterbacks like a Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert to almost be interchangeable. A lot of those individual ranking gaps have a lot to do with positional players that are not quarterbacks kind of funneling themselves in between those gaps. And you are seeing that, especially now with some early startups this year. We're sitting here on February 6th and really deciding, like, where do these types of quarterbacks land themselves? And I do find that our rankings have a pretty good understanding of where Kyler Murray kind of falls. He's kind of sitting somewhere in that, mid-second round kind of range, with the idea of, maybe a Caleb Williams being the separation between a Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray. So it's good to be conscientious of how those, internalized factors play in. And I think it's even more important to understand how the teams around them kind of support them. So, kind of going through what Billy honed in on: stability, rushing upside, elite traits, scheme, and, that weekly upside being the factors that we really want to hone in on to provide us a good structure for how we rank.
Love that. I do want to finish with one final thought. I'm glad you listed out the attributes a little bit more, because I don't think I really highlighted the elite traits portion of it, which I think is really important. I mean, it's really hard to evaluate quarterbacks in general, especially coming out of college and the rookie drafts. Like, it just is. I mean, even the best get it wrong. Like, Bryce Young, 1 overall, CJ Stroud, look how great he looks. And obviously some of that is team coaching dependent. There's a lot going on there. Don't get me wrong. But when we're talking about quarterbacks, I do want to try to bet on elite traits, because I think, and when I say that, I mean elite rushing upside like an Anthony Richardson, elite accuracy, arm talent like CJ Stroud.
The best of the best of the best, sir.
Just elite quarterback play all around like a Josh Allen, right? Just an absolute built in the lab machine. Okay. Really, like, but these are the kind of things that are going to push quarterbacks up the rankings for us, right? And that's why you see Anthony Richardson at quarterback 6. That's probably a little spicy, but we are betting on elite traits here, and we have seen elite play from him. I'm sure you've seen all the tweets all over the place, the legendary upside that he possesses. So just want to highlight that, with quarterbacks, that is a really important factor. That's not really an attribute that makes its way into any of the other positional evaluations. So elite traits are very important for me specifically. So I do want to highlight that and kind of what I'm referring to when I say that. Jake, thank you as always for joining me. Really enjoying these Ranking Symposium episodes. With that, we are going to hop out of here and join us for our next positional evaluation. Peace out.